So hello guys and welcome back to Manchester's Southern Cemetery. So far we've looked at the graves of John Alcock, John Henry Davis, Daniel Adamson, Charles Sarker and Ellis Lowry. This time I'm going to be spreading out a little bit more to look at two legends of the city. The first is over here on the left hand side. So I'm starting here today, just west of the centre circle from the last video, just west of the centre of the cemetery. And we're looking at this one here, the most unique tomb or grave in the whole place, the biggest grave in the whole cemetery. This is John Rylands, the man who made Manchester what it is today, the original Manchester man. So Rylands was the most successful Manchester cotton merchant of the 19th century. His business at the time was also the largest textile manufacturing business in the UK, employing 15,000 people across 17 mills and factories. John Rylands was born in 1801 in St Helens, the son of Joseph Rylands, who owned a draper's shop. John and his two older brothers opened their own business manufacturing hand looms, those large wooden frame machines that would go on to transform the modern world. First based in Wigan, they experienced a huge boom when their focus became fixed on Manchester. Their first shop was open on Market Street and was so successful that they were able to buy up many of the surrounding shops too. In the 1920s, to mark the centenary, the company actually knocked all of these down and built Rylands Building, what is known today as Debenhams. Very soon, John Rylands and his brothers were setting up their own mills all over the city. Rylands and Company imported raw cotton from India, wove it, spun it and turned it into cloth and clothing, which they sold in their own shops. They also owned land in Wigan and therefore coal. So politically, Rylands was very liberal for his time, although he never entered politics. Instead, he was kind of a quiet philanthropist, donating to many great civic causes, including a public baths, a library and a town hall over in Stretford where he lived. His home was Longford Hall, now Longford Park in Stretford, and it was here that Rylands died in 1888. After his death, his widow Enriqueta built John Rylands Library on Deansgate as a gift to the people of Manchester. Now I don't know if you've ever been in there, but it's an absolutely wonderful building, architecturally as well as what it contains. Now looking at this, you know this is a guy with money. And it was even more ostentatious back in the day. It had angels on it, adorning it, but they were taken down in the 1920s after people were constantly vandalising them. Also down here you can see the remains of a railing, an iron railing running all the way around. Unfortunately that was all stolen in the 1960s, but still it's a unique structure. It's perhaps the biggest, grandest grave in the whole cemetery. So from here, our next stop is a famous footballer who played for both the red and blue halves of the city, but that's over the other side of the cemetery, so I'm going to get a leg on. Let's go. So I'm over on the western side of the cemetery now, and Princess Parkway is just over there. Very, very busy road. And I've come here to see the grave of Billy Meredith. I've been told it's very, very tricky to find. So it's somewhere around here. It's hard to pick out on the internet where it is, and you have to do your research off the internet to find out. So it's around this cluster of trees here. Let's go have a look. And here it is, Billy Meredith. It wasn't that hard to find at all, it's just off the path. It took me about 30 seconds. Anyway, this is Billy Meredith. He was one of the first superstars of professional football. He was an absolute legend. He played for Manchester City and Manchester United, and then Manchester City again. So Billy Meredith was born in Chirk in Wales in 1874 and began working in a coal mine as a teenager. But he had a knack for football, and it eventually took him from Wrexham to Norwich and then to Manchester, where he went to Ardwick and started playing for Manchester City. In 1904, Meredith led City to the first FA Cup trophy, scoring the only goal in a final. But a year later, he was accused of attempting to bribe the captain of Aston Villa £10 to throw a match and let City win the league on the final day of the season. The subsequent inquiry uncovered a whole raft of financial irregularities at City, including players being paid far more than the league permitted them, thereby unfairly pricing out smaller clubs who didn't have the financial clout. Funny how history repeats itself in a way. A whole swathe of City players were banned, including Meredith. and was snapped up quickly by Manchester United on a free transfer. Meredith would help United to their first proper successful spell, winning the league in 1909, the FA Cup in 1910 and the league again in 1911. So on the pitch he was an absolute wizard, a fantastic footballer for his day. He made over 300 appearances for the Reds and he was still playing well into his 40s. He played for Wales at 45 years of age and just a few months shy of his 50th birthday he was in an FA Cup semi-final. Meredith died at his home in Withington in 1858, just a few months after the Munich air disaster had ripped the heart out of his former club United. He remains one of only a handful of players to appear for both Manchester teams and arguably the greatest Welsh player of all time. So he was originally buried here in an unmarked grave, but in a rare occurrence of City and United coming together, they both put money towards a proper grave for him, a proper memorial for him. So here it is, and it's not too tricky to find. And I like that because if you see my other videos about the history of United and history of City, they're a bit raw. They're my first videos I did. Anyway, they do have a shared history, both clubs. They're kind of very closely knit, particularly the further you go back in time. So it's nice to see that a player who marked that era by playing for both teams, semi-successful eras for both clubs, is honoured by both teams in later years. So I just like that. It's very nice.